Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of CVtv Workshops. I am Carlos, your host, along with David Dakin, my co-host. How are you, Dave?
Doing good, Carlos. How's it going today?
I'm doing well. I see we both kind of have different backgrounds today. What's going on there?
Yeah, just we getting prepared for the move down here to our new facility here in about the next couple of weeks. So things are kind of getting a mess and chaotic. So I just brought it into the office today.
There's probably nothing left in that office anyway. It's just like it's like an empty room by now.
Yeah, it's kind of a mess. So
yeah, I bet. It's got to be a nightmare down there. I hate moving. I don't like moving.
No, it's stressful. It's a lot of work involved, physical work, and just the stress of being in a new environment. But
yeah,
it's been a long time in the making, and I think everybody's excited about it. And the new place is 10 times bigger than where we are now, and we've been spread out through different buildings around here. So we'll all be under one roof, and it'll be a lot easier for us, I believe.
Absolutely. I remember I was there in October, and everything was skeleton, and I cannot believe that only almost 9 months later, and we're ready to pick up and start a new facet in our lives.
Yeah, we'll have a lot of surprises and fun things to see that we'll be showing everybody. So we got a really nice main display tank going in, and it's a pretty unique build. So I'm looking forward to showing it to everyone and what we've done with it.
Talking about that, I think we're going to have to do a workshop, or we're going to have to do some video live when we decide to take that tank down.
Yeah.
I promise everybody, I'm actually going to be heading down there to help out, move stuff, and set up some things. And we're going to do a couple of more than a couple. We're going to do a few live shows in there just to give everybody updates. It's an amazing setup, and we got a little surprise for you in terms of that. It'll be fun, so good. So we're talking about today. Our workshop is going to be about Wi-Fi. Let's just talk about it. I know. Let's just be honest, Dave. I know that there, the fans out there from other controllers, they keep hitting us with the Wi-Fi thing. And the reality is that it's 2021, and Wi-Fi is pretty damn stable now if you set it up correctly.
Right.
I think, and what we're going to cover today is the different things that Wi-Fi has evolved. And unfortunately, over the last few years, Wi-Fi has evolved based on the demands of the home user, which don't necessarily mean are the best practices to have Wi-Fi, but people demand that. So the companies out there are putting the Wi-Fi switches and hardware to do what they want and trying to make it work when it really wasn't built to do certain, such things. So we're going to kind of talk a little bit about what are the best practices of creating a Wi-Fi network, best practices of creating a mesh, which is something that people are, purchasing nowadays, and how to create a reliable Wi-Fi network that will work not only with the HYDROS, but with other devices. And we're also going to explain what's the difference between 2.4 and 5 gigahertz. And I'm not talking about your cell phone, 5G. That's completely different. We're talking about 2.4 and 5 gigahertz. And yes, 2.4 is old, but there's a purpose for 2.4. There's a reason why it's still around. And we're going to make an analogy to the same as a radio frequency, AM and FM. So, hang tight in there. It might get a little technical. We're going to try to make it our best not to get too technical. We don't like it's HYDROS. I don't like it to get too technical. But you know what? We're going to try our best to make it better. Before we start, though, I'd like to say thank you, everybody, for coming in. I see Drax is in here. Everything Wendy. Douglas is here as well. Becca Bitz is here. Jeremy is here as well. Jeff Bernadette is here as well. So thank you so much for visiting. It's so great to see. It's so great to see the regular people, but also see new people. I mean, and see new faces or what new handles. So if you like the show, if this is your first time watching, please just hit that like button, hit the little subscribe, hit the little bell, and you'll be notified right away when we have a live show. And we do this almost every 2 weeks, even while we're moving. That shows commitment.
Right.
So before everything, we have our usual question, Dave. What's the weather like in New Orleans?
It's hot and very humid.
And you chose this time to move?
I didn't choose it. It was supposed to be in April, and it just seems like it keeps going further down, you know, with everything going on in our world with material shortages, and it's just been one delay after the next, it seems. But we were in the final, we're in the home stretch, so we're going to get there.
All right. I want to say hello to Bob. I want to say hello to Alex and Hernan from Costa Rica. He's here watching. I apologize. We're not doing it in Spanish, but, you know, Google Translator works great. All right. So let's talk about the Wi-Fi. And Dave, what are HYDROS Wi-Fi options? Why did we choose Wi-Fi? You know? Yeah,
you know, and that's one thing, you know, I hear a lot of people, you know, saying, well, why isn't there a hardwired option? And you know, when we sat down and wanted to do HYDROS, we wanted to make something that was built to withstand the elements that we're placing these computers in, essentially. And as soon as we would decide on doing a hardwired version, it means drilling a physical hole into our enclosure, and we then lose our IP rating. So that was one of the reasons. And let's be honest, how many people want to run a designated wire to their aquarium, you know, from their router? So, you know, that was one of the, you know, the big things we discussed. And now what we can do with Wi-Fi and the way technology's going, we're like, hey, let's set off on this path. And I've been telling people that we're coming with a hardwired version for an AC outlets, and that's pretty close. They're out there. You know, we test everything. We're not just going to throw it out, and they're out there running in beta testers on real tanks. So it's coming. Give us another, you know, month or so, and maybe we'll start showing that, and it'll definitely be available before the end of the year. But I really, even once that comes out, Carlos, I really believe, as successful as we've been with the Wi-Fi strips, that it's still a very real and usable device. We probably have about 5,000 on the market now since we started selling, and to my knowledge, they've been very reliable. Yes, we know that you can probably find one on Amazon. We're not the manufacturer of them. You know, but we are offering the warranty with them. We are offering a nice mounting bracket with them. We're going to stand behind the ones that we are, that we vetted ourselves and that we're putting our name on. So yeah, you can save a few bucks if you can find one that works on the 2U protocol that we're using on those, or that come with those Wi-Fi strips. But you know, once we release the hardwired option, I still believe that these, you know, Wi-Fi strips are going to be really, really useful. And many people are going to see that for $40 retail. You know, you can add how many, up to 8 of them to your system of Wi-Fi devices. So, you know, that's what we're here to talk about is the Wi-Fi and the devices that we have available to go with the HYDROS.
So let's backtrack in here because you've covered a lot during the last 30 seconds. So let's backtrack a little. So let's talk about the Wi-Fi device. What is a Wi-Fi device? What does the HYDROS do Wi-Fi device?
Yeah, you know, the Wi-Fi device, we actually have our own Wi-Fi chips installed inside the unit. We're using an ESP32W Rover, just to get a little technical, but the Wi-Fi is actually on board. It's not some piggyback kind of a hack, so to speak. But you know, and we can set up to 8 devices from that chip itself.
All right. So a Wi-Fi device, though, is pretty much an outlet. It's an outlet that doesn't have a wire from the HYDROS controller to the actual outlet itself. You're not tied in to having a wire running, from the controller to an outlet that is running your skimmer. In this case right now, what we have is a Wi-Fi outlet that could be placed somewhere on the other side of the tank. So you have your controller on the left-hand side of the tank and you have your skimmer on the right-hand side of the tank. And I don't have to run a wire through the back of the sump or through the back of the tank to get to the Wi-Fi outlet. Mm-hmm. It makes it so much easier to use. Technically, that's what it is. And, our producer April's putting that graph in there, and that's what it is. You can wirelessly control the skimmer, turn it on and off with with just by sending the signal through Wi-Fi. All right. So as Dave pretty much said, the Wi-Fi, the HYDROS can do 8 different Wi-Fi devices. You can control up to 8 Wi-Fi devices. Each HYDROS control can do that, or the collective can also control 8 Wi-Fi devices. So you can see right there. So I can connect 4 Wi-Fi strips. I can connect a single jack. I connect a Wi-Fi feeder. I can connect an Alcatronic and a Mastertronic. Each of those devices takes a slot out from the total 8. So that makes it, that could clarify, because it's still the way that they connect to the HYDROS is via Wi-Fi, and the HYDROS only has 8 available Wi-Fi slots that it can connect to. It makes it a little bit easier. Mm-hmm. In terms of the Wi-Fi strips, we have 2 types of Wi-Fi strips. We have the 4 outlet strip, that has 4 AC outlets, which are controlled individually. And we also have 4 USB outlets, which are controlled as a single bank of 4. So you either turn all USB outlets on or you turn them all off. It's one bank. And like Dave said, they're $40 on our website. And yes, you can go to Amazon and purchase something similar that will cost you half the price. But good luck contacting that manufacturer 2 months from now if something happens to that Wi-Fi strip. You won't. It won't be do it. If you purchase it through a website, it comes with a really good-looking and custom-made mounting bracket, which the Amazon version doesn't have. And on top of that, we've made sure that the firmware on the devices that we're selling is the correct firmware. We've tested this. We've tested hundreds of these units of different Wi-Fi devices to figure out which one works. And we've also tested the same model with different firmwares to make sure that we got the right firmware. So there's been a lot
critical, because you're taking a shot that the firmware on something you find on Amazon may or may not work, or it may not work reliably. There's a lot of software work on the back end that was put into really making this thing work reliably. So is it really worth to save a few bucks in the end? I can't answer that, but I would hope, for what you have on your aquarium, you got a lot more invested in that than saving 15 or 20 bucks.
That is correct. That is correct. And you know what? We have very smart people here in the hobby. And if you're an electrical engineer, please open up the Wi-Fi strip and take a look at it and let us know how it looks. If it looks clean, if it's something that you would use, or if there's something that you wouldn't use. I mean, I as they say, I dare you to do it. Grab one of our HYDROS devices, open it up, and take a look at the circuitry, how it's built, how everything is laid out, and then let us know if this is not something that you want to use or do. And I urge you to do that same thing with other products from other companies. You should know what you have inside. You should know what's inside your device. And
it does have EU and it's a UL ETL, which conforms to UL standards. So that's another thing to really pay attention to.
Okay. So the second model that we have on the smart is the smart outlet, which is a single outlet. If you don't want to buy the 4 outlets, if you just want one, then we have this little single outlet. The big difference between the single outlet and the 4 outlet version is the 4 outlet version does not have power consumption monitoring, but the single outlet does have. So the HYDROS can see how much power is being consumed through that outlet. Other than that, it's also, connects to the HYDROS Wi-Fi. It takes one of the 8 available slots that you have. And again, you can find them cheaper on Amazon. Yes, you can, by all means, go. But go ahead. But the warranty, you're not going to get a 1-year warranty on those products. I know for a fact that some of those places, after 2 months, you can't return them. Try returning something on Amazon that is already past the return date. Good luck. So we're just trying to give you options. Yes, we charge a little more, but that's because it comes with a warranty. There's a peace of mind that you have to that you could have if you go with us, unless if you want to pay the cheaper price and take the risk. That's up to you. It's up to you.
And believe me, you want that mounting bracket. I mean, there was
Yes.
an investment in that mold. It isn't much, but you really don't want those strips laying on the ground. So to get that mounted is really a nice peace of mind and makes it easy to pull the plug out if you need to.
Correct. Exactly. So the next Wi-Fi device that we have that can take one of the Wi-Fi slots is the fish feeder. Okay. And it's a pretty nice one. And again, let's make it clear. We've talked about this, Dave, before. HYDROS, we're not in the business of designing a fish feeder.
Right.
I mean, honestly, we don't have the time,
Yeah.
we don't have the knowledge, and it's not something we want to do. So
Nope.
CoralView has been around for a long time, and we have great partnerships with many companies. So why not talk to a company that has been building fish feeders for the last 20 years and tell them, hey, can I use your fish feeder and, let us put the HYDROS and, the stamp in there. It's a good fish feeder. Let us do that.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, we can sell it for $35. But if I had to build that fish feeder, if we had to have an engineer, then it would be over $100.
Yep. Absolutely. So, just the investment in the molds alone, and
exactly,
it's just not worth it.
It's not worth it for a fish feeder.
And that feeder, you may recognize it. It's been on the market for a long, long time. So
exactly. So again, what is it, Dave? Stay in your lane, right?
Yeah, stay in your lane.
Stay in your lane. That's it. We're not a feeder company. We don't know how to make a feeder. We're very good at making the controller, but not the feeder. But there's somebody else out there that knows how to make a feeder, that knows the experience, has learned through trials and errors what works and what doesn't work. Why not take advantage of that? Why do we have to make our own feeder? No, we don't, and we're not going to.
Right.
So that, and the next set of things that takes the Wi-Fi slots out of the 8 is the Mastertronic and the Alcatronic.
Yep.
Both of them, the Mastertronic can actually monitor and control your alkalinity, while the Alcatronic can monitor and control your alkalinity, while the Mastertronic can actually do phosphates, nitrates, calcium, magnesium, alkalinity. And did you know, Dave, that it can also do nitrites and iodine?
Wow.
I know.
Adding to it.
I know. Yes, exactly. So in addition to phosphates, nitrates, calcium, magnesium, and alkalinity, it can also do nitrites and iodine. And they keep adding test kits all the time. And if you look at my screen right now, most of you probably have seen it right there. Sitting right in there. There's the Mastertronic. And it's been running for months in here. And it's so far it's been pretty damn reliable. And we'll go over that later. I think when it's just a tease.
That could be another show in itself coming.
That could be another show in itself. Exactly.
They are on the way. We probably 2 to 3 weeks out from receiving the first shipment of them. So
exactly. I mean,
it's one of those things we wanted to vest and test the hell out of it, basically, before we were going to put it out.
But not only that is, and let's be honest, the Mastertronic is in Europe and it's out. It's been out.
Yeah.
But there's a reason why, guys, and it's not in the US. First of all, testing-wise, we wanted to test it thoroughly before we did that. And second of all, COVID hit.
Yeah.
Okay. Technically, what happens is Focustronic built those, sent them to Europe, and then when we placed our order, COVID hit.
Mm-hmm.
So everything stopped.
Yeah.
And then right now, I promise you, if you Google microchip shortage, you will get articles from every single major news network in the world
Yeah.
talking about microchip outage, to the point that even Apple is having a hard time getting chips for their devices. Yes, they make their own chips, but they also outsource some of the other chips, and it's incredibly hard to find those chips.
Yeah.
You know, and if Apple, which is a major user of chips in the world, has a hard time, you know,
Yeah.
here CoralView, which is a tiny little sesame seed fraction out of Apple, you know, we're going to have issues too.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, at the end of the day, I hate to use this excuse, but it is true. COVID is caused a lot of headaches.
I look at the auto lots or dealerships around me, and there's no inventory, hardly any inventory sitting, because they can't get the little circuit boards to finish their building, and
Dave,
the vehicles are sitting all over at plants just waiting.
Exactly.
It's
you know
crazy.
what? In the hobby, what's it? 2 weeks ago, I went to my CO2 refill, the gas refill for my calcium reactor. I walked into this place, and they only had 2.5 pounds aluminum tanks.
Wow.
In stock. And I asked her, I said, what's going on? Did something happen? And she goes, we cannot get the tanks. There is an aluminum shortage in the world right now.
Wow.
Last year, it was cans. They had a lot of problems bringing cans, and that's why a lot of bottles and a lot of plastic bottles were available instead of cans. Now there's a huge shortage on aluminum. And even for us, I wanted to buy a new extra tank for my CO2, my calcium reactor. I couldn't buy it because there are none available.
Wow.
So COVID, the residuals of COVID it's like the aftershocks. If you live in California, you know aftershocks. You know, sometimes the aftershocks, it's a 15-second earthquake, but the aftershocks can last for months, you know, and that's pretty much what we're experiencing. All right, so let's talk about, let's say hello to Douglas here. Jay Moran is here as well. Becca is here as well. Douglas is here. Selensky and Smith. We got 2 Dougs in here, so that's actually kind of cool. They're asking questions. That's awesome. Thank you for watching. Ellery is here as well. If you like the show, if you like, what you see and you want to learn, please just hit the subscribe button, hit the bell, hit the little, like thumbs up, and you'll be notified right away when we have a new show. We actually have shows every 2 weeks, and this is CoralView TV, CVtv workshops, and we're talking about pretty much, things in the hobby. And today we're talking about Wi-Fi.
Yep.
So let's talk about Wi-Fi. And let's talk about the Wi-Fi itself, So HYDROS devices, there are 2 different types of Wi-Fis out in the, well, kind of like there's more, but for simplicity purposes, there's two types of Wi-Fi bands. There's a 2.4 gigahertz band, and then there's a 5 gigahertz band. This has nothing to do with 5G on your cell phone. It's different. It's completely different. 5G is a name. 2.4 gigahertz is an actual band, okay, a frequency band. So there are 2 bands, and the easiest way I can explain it is 2.4 and 5 gigahertz is the same. You could interpret it as AM and FM radio, okay? If you're old enough, you understand AM and FM. If you're a little younger, you probably might not, but let me give you a crash course on AM and FM. AM is, what is it called, Dave?
Amplitude
modulation. Exactly.
And frequency modulation.
Yes. So in layman terms, AM is slow, but you have great distance. It can stretch. It can stretch for miles and miles and miles and give you a reliable connection. FM is sharper. It gives you a better sound. It gives you that stereo sound, so it can carry more information in the band. But because it carries more information, the distance it can travel is much shorter. And that's why when you're driving outside of the city and you're listening to again, if you're old enough, you remember this. You're driving out to the city and you're listening to your FM station, and then all of a sudden it starts to fade away, and then you have to switch to AM, and the AM you can carry it. If you're listening to the baseball game, you can carry it all the way, almost across state. But if you're FM, you're not going to do it. So Anyway, the moral of the story is 2.4 was built for distance with very little data. 5 gigahertz was built for lots of data with short distance. And the reason why routers are created with both bands is because you can separate the two. So you can have devices that don't need that much data to connect to the 2.4 gigahertz network, so that you're not taking away space on the 5 gigahertz network that needs the more data, like your streaming device, when you're downloading music, when you're downloading movies. So you don't want, you don't want your 2.4 gigahertz devices slowing down your streaming because they're taking away from it. So that's why. So even though 2.4 gigahertz is old, there is a purpose for it. And just like AM and FM radio, I don't think they're going to go away. They're going to stick around just because of the nature of the beast. Okay. So when we built the HYDROS, we decided we want to go with 2.4 gigahertz for 2 reasons. The chips are cheaper when you have 2.4 gigahertz. And also because it's 2.4, it's a much more reliable Wi-Fi connection than the 5 gigahertz. So it's not that we decided that we didn't want to do 5 gigahertz. It's just when you have to choose between the two of them, you have to choose the one that fits the purpose of what you want. Okay. And yes, we could have done a 5 gigahertz, but technically it's an overkill. It's an overkill. And then, you would have had problems with connectivity, like if you go a long distance, or if, your router is on one corner of the house and the tank is all the way in the basement on the other corner, then 5 gigahertz doesn't carry as much, but your 2.4 gigahertz signal will carry a longer distance. So that's the reason why we chose 2.4 over 5 gigahertz. All HYDROS devices are compatible with 2.4 gigahertz, and they are not compatible with unsecured networks. I've seen this before because I've seen this while I'm doing support. People have problems connecting to the Wi-Fi, and then I ask them, are you connecting to a Wi-Fi network with a password? And then they say no. And unfortunately, due to security reasons, then we do not want to have you connect to an unsecure network. There's been rumors out there, there's been articles of, a casino in Vegas who got hacked through some kind of aquarium related equipment. I don't know what the equipment is. I don't have the details. I'm not going to go into it because I don't want to go into it. But the reason why we want to do this is because we don't want to let you connect to an unsecured network. We're going to force you to connect to a secure network, because you should never have an open Wi-Fi at home. Never. Okay. So that's the reason why. All right. Now, people ask, okay, what kind of network should I connect to? Do I connect, how do I know which network I connect to? So we've created this little graph in here that Jeremy created, which is an awesome graph. And it shows you what you're connected to. So when you start the HYDROS app and you look at the Wi-Fi's available, you're going to see one of 3 things. You're going to see one network, you're going to see 2 different networks, or you're going to see nothing. Okay. So if you have a router that has 2.4 and 5 gigahertz network combined as one signal, which is a mesh network, and we'll talk about that a little bit later, you can connect, but it's not a reliable connection. And we'll get to that a little bit later. If you see one signal and the router is a 2.4 gigahertz only, that is a Wi-Fi that you want to connect to. That is reliable, that is strong, and it's going to be good. All right. The next scenario is we have a router that has 2 separate Wi-Fi bands. It has a 2.4 band and it has a 5 gigahertz band. The HYDROS cannot see the 5 gigahertz band. It doesn't have hardware that is compatible for it. So all you will see is the 2.4 gigahertz band. So you connect to that. The difference, though, if you look at the picture, look at the SSID. The actual SSID, which is the same as your Wi-Fi name. Everybody asks you, it's like, what's your Wi-Fi number? What's your Wi-Fi name and password? SSID is the name. See how on the middle section, CoralView 2 and CoralView 5. This person right here has purposely separated the 2 bands. So they're completely separate. They're autonomous from each other. They have different names. So the HYDROS device has the credentials for CoralView 2. It will never see CoralView 5. And even if it's so CoralView 5, it doesn't match CoralView 2, which is the credential it has. So it'll never connect to it. Okay. And the last, which I've seen also during support, is if you don't see any networks. So I've seen people come to me and say, hey, I'm trying to connect my HYDROS, but when I go to Wi-Fi, I don't see anything. And they say, well, your Wi-Fi, your HYDROS is not working. And I go, technically, it is working. It is your router. And after I ask questions and everything, we find out that they had the internet company installed the router for their house, and the internet company turned off their 2.4 gigahertz band. So the router is putting out only 5 gigahertz. And that's why they don't see anything. Now, you may ask, why would a internet company turn off the 2.4 and leave only the 5 gigahertz? Because the short answer is because people have asked for it. People have asked the internet company, I'm paying for 400 download, I'm not getting 400. I'm paying for 200 download, I'm not getting 200. Remember how we talked about 2.4 being a slow but distance? So what happens is if your computer, if your device connects to the 2.4 gigahertz network and then you do a speed test, you're going to get a slow. You're not going to get the 400. You're not going to get the 200. So the companies, the ISP companies, the internet companies, instead of trying to spend time educating us on what's happening, they just choose the easy way out, which is let's just turn off the 2.4 so they always connect to the 5 and they will always get the 200. They won't get the 400, and then we don't have to get those phone calls where people are calling us because they're not getting the speed that they paid for. Mm-hmm. Again, there are reasons why, why they do that. So which one you should connect? You should connect to a 2.4 gigahertz network only. That's the way to do it. All right.
Carlos, do you see many routers out there that are strictly just 5 gigahertz?
I don't see that many. Actually, there's not that many out there. If you go to for the home business, there's not that many. You have a lot. There mainly are dual bands. And by default, if you purchase a router from Best Buy, from Amazon, from anything, you're going to get a router that has both 2.4 and 5 gigahertz connected. But if you got the router from your internet service provider, then that's a toss-up. You can get one that has both, or you can get one that has only one. And also, one thing that you should remember is that any router that is given to you by the internet service company, they're not that good. They're not good routers. Think about it. You have millions of customers in an area that you have to give them a router. You're not, as an internet company, I'm not going to go and spend $300 per customer on a router. It's not good business practice. What are you going to do? You're going to find the cheapest router that you can. You're going to find the cheapest. You're going to call that company and says, I am going to buy millions of these routers and I need you to give me your best pricing.
Mm-hmm. And you're going to get the cheapest.
Yes, exactly. You're going to get the cheapest one. So think about it. There's a business explanation of why you get the cheapest router, mm-hmm. From your ISP. So if you say that your router is great because your ISP gave it to you, you might want to think about that statement because it doesn't make business sense, Yep. All right. So one more thing that we're going to talk about here, which is something that people don't kind of forget, is called line of sight. Okay, Wi-Fi has line of sight. And what is line of sight? Line of sight is, let me put an example. Wi-Fi will not travel through water. As soon as you have a body of water, as soon as the Wi-Fi comes in and hits that body of water, it might go like 1 or 2 inches and then it'll just die off, completely die off, nothing. Again, it's all about business sense. Dave, have you ever seen a true Wi-Fi underwater camera?
No, they don't exist.
They don't exist. Why? Because Wi-Fi does not travel through water. Again, we're not lying to you here. I'm not making these things up. I'm telling you, and I'm trying to show you with, common sense things why, telling you why it doesn't exist. And there's a reason why. There are no true Wi-Fi underwater cameras because Wi-Fi doesn't travel through water. So line of sight would be like having a router on the left-hand side, having the HYDROS on the right-hand side, and then have a tank right in between. What's going to happen is Wi-Fi is not going, the signal is not going to go around, make a turn, and then come back and hit that router, and they hit the HYDROS. It's not going to do that. The HYDROS is going to be in a dead spot, or if not a dead spot, something worse. It's going to be in a spot where Wi-Fi comes in and out, comes in and out, comes in and out. So those people, if you're having the issue where things keep connecting and disconnecting, think of line of sight. Now, take a look at the image that April put in here, which is a great example. We put the router on the upper left-hand corner of the house, and then the tank is right below it, and the HYDROS devices are under the tank. So the Wi-Fi, technically, if you draw a straight line between the router and the control, that straight line happens to travel through the aquarium. Not good. That's not going to work. In that case, you have to create a mesh. Okay. And by creating a mesh is you're adding another access point that is going to grab the Wi-Fi, or it's going to grab your internet signal and then push it from a different angle, so that from that other angle, if I draw a line from the HYDROS controller to the new access point, there is no water in between. So the Wi-Fi will travel and reach the HYDROS device without any problems. And that's the right-hand picture. You see that? So everybody, take a look at that. That's what it is. So you create a mesh, but now, just because Wi-Fi is not that simple, now you create a mesh. But then my question is, what kind of mesh did you create? Did you create a wireless mesh, or did you create a wired mesh? Because what happens if I create a wireless mesh? So let me put it this way. Again, talking about in layman's terms, Dave. I have my router in the corner, then I go to the fish tank, and around the fish tank, no matter where I put my HYDROS device, I have really bad signal. So therefore, I'm thinking, you know what? This room has really bad signal. Okay, so let me fix it. Let me order an access point and install the access point, but I'm going to do it wirelessly. So I'm going to ask April to show me picture 12. Okay, so you're adding an access point that is connecting to the Wi-Fi, to the router via wireless, but you're putting the access point in a room that already has really bad wireless signal. What do you think is going to happen, Dave?
Yeah, it's not going to be too good.
It's not going to be too good. It's not. I mean, this is common sense. This is common sense. So what we need to do is we need to figure out a way to connect the access point to the router so it doesn't rely on the really bad wireless signal that is in that room, but instead grab really good signal and then push a very strong signal into this room that doesn't have really good wireless. So that's the difference between a wireless mesh and a wired mesh. A wireless mesh, the router and the access point connect to each other via wireless. So that wireless connection is your Achilles heel. All right. On a wired mesh, the access point and the router connect via wire. It's a hard wire. There's no Wi-Fi reliability in here. It's a hard wire. So it doesn't matter where that access point could be inside a safe, or, then if it's wired, there's going to be Wi-Fi inside that safe because the access point is taking the internet connection from the wire and not from the wireless. All right. So that's the difference. So if you have a room that has really bad signal, don't put an access point, an extender in that room and connect it to the router using wireless, because it's not going to work. You have a bad wireless signal and you're relying on that bad wireless signal to connect the access point to the router. You're just back to square one. You're just adding one more thing that is going to fail. So if you have a bad connection or something, then add a wired access point. And then that wired access point will create a Wi-Fi that will push out, and that signal will be even stronger. So let me put it this way again, if you don't believe me. If you go to a hospital, if you go to a business office, you go to a bank, you go to any business, they don't have wireless meshes. They're way too unreliable. They don't work. They have wired meshes. Yes, they have the pods on the ceiling that you see, but if you look at the pod inside in the wall, there's a wire running, a hard wire running all the way through to the router or the switchboard. Dave, on the new warehouse, do we have a wireless mesh or a wired mesh?
Wired mesh.
A wired mesh, because a wireless mesh is too unreliable. Okay? So that's what the difference between wireless mesh and a wired mesh. Wireless mesh, usually no. And again, this is one of those things that was created by the wireless router companies to appease the demand of the people that have homes that they don't want to drill holes. They don't want to run the wires. Is it best practices? No, but they still sell, so they're going to sell it, you know? So that's what I'm talking about when it comes to wires. Like, so just because you have a Wi-Fi doesn't mean that it's good Wi-Fi. You have to set it up correctly. You have to understand what Wi-Fi is about. And you know what? And for those people that say, well, I'm going to just pay somebody to do it. You know what? Yeah. How many times do we hire contractors to come and build a house? And if you're not watching them, they'll use an 8-inch beam instead of a 10 or a 12-inch beam that they were supposed to. But because you're not watching them, that's how they cut corners. You can't do that. So even if I don't know what I'm talking about, I still should have a basic knowledge of what it is. So I know when somebody is not doing their job correctly. You know? That's what it is. So if we go to picture number 11, April, that is an access point. Netgear Wi-Fi range extender EX3700. That's the access point that we recommend. But notice on the right-hand side of that access point, see that blue wire? That cable is running to the router. So that connection is creating a wired mesh. Yep. Okay, and that access point, you can buy it on Amazon for like about $25 to $30, and I think it has like 15 to 20,000 reviews over the years, and it's like 4.5 stars. So it's pretty good. Yep. All right. Yes, Bob says that only happens in Chicago. Sure, Bob. That only happens in Chicago. You know, oh God, don't get me started on that. Don't get me started on that one. All right. So that's pretty much Wi-Fi in a nutshell. And I guess I'm not trying to get too technical here, but it's one of those things that we need to cover, because a lot of the times it's very easy to have Wi-Fi problems and blame the device, blame your Wi-Fi camera, blame the Nest that didn't connect, blame the HYDROS, when in reality, the problem is that the Wi-Fi is not set up correctly. Or you don't have line of sight, or your router is not set up correctly with the correct bands. So then the Nest cannot see the router. So, it's very easy to blame something else when the problem is, in fact, the Wi-Fi, All right. So on the next episode, on the next part of the show, we're going to talk about the Wi-Fi strips. We're going to talk about how easy it is to pair the Wi-Fi strips to the HYDROS. And kind of we left it that way because I think we have like 10 minutes left, but it doesn't take that long to do the Wi-Fi strips. It's super easy. But Dave and I felt like we needed to spend the big bulk of this show talking about Wi-Fi, because it's something that people don't really cover. And when they do, it's way too technical. Or they're just talking and there are no pictures and graphics for make it easier for people to understand. I'm not, I'm saying I'm a visual person. If I have pictures, it just makes it easier to grasp the concept, when you're seeing it visually and somebody's explaining it. But before we do that, I think we have a message from our sponsor. You know what? Our move is your gain.
Yeah.
Literally, we're moving. We don't want to move this stuff. So, you know,
I gotta pay to move it, or we put it on sale. And
so, you know, that's a great commercial.
Yep.
Before we move on to the next segment, I want to talk about, you know, Spencer here. Spencer Priest said something. It says right here, Carlos, line of sight is the wrong word for Wi-Fi. You can't look through the floor or walls. And that is correct. So maybe line of sight is when it comes to water. You have to have line of sight when it comes to water. So yes, it can travel through walls. To some walls, it can travel through furniture, but it cannot travel through water. Yep. At the same time, there's a message that he posted that I have Ethernet in the room, so I just put another Wi-Fi router on there on the tank. Also, you do not want to put another Wi-Fi router. Router is incorrect. The last thing you want to do is put two routers on the same home. You are going to have a nightmare of problems because you'll have two operators trying to control traffic at the same time. The correct terminology would be Wi-Fi extender or access point or a Wi-Fi bridge, but not a Wi-Fi router. So for those of you that are thinking, you know what, I have this old router that I'm not using, I'm just going to plug it in. Be careful. You have to set that router correctly to turn off the routing part of it so it doesn't try to control traffic with your other router in the network. So, you know, we can do another show just on that, but I'm not going to do it. So I'm just going to say, beware. Do not connect two routers on the same network household unless you know what you're talking about. Unless you know how to do it, not talk about, but unless you know how to do it properly. If you don't know how to do it properly, you will have a world of problems.
Hey, Carlos, while we're talking about Wi-Fi, I like to bring up keep in mind Wi-Fi and internet are non-related. And
yes,
we try and keep saying that, but it's true. Your internet can go out. Your Wi-Fi is going to stay running as long as you have power. So
explain that to me, Dave. You know what? Let's do this because I mean the whole show it's been about layman terms. Yeah. So let's talk about that. So let's say I have my HYDROS and I have a Wi-Fi strip that is controlling my skimmer. And you know the HYDROS sends the signal to turn off the skimmer turns off, turn it on, and so forth. Now I lose my internet. So I have power in the house, but I go to the internet and nothing is happening. Then I go to my, to my internet service provider and says there's an outage. What's going to happen to my HYDROS and that skimmer? Is it going to continue to work or is it going to fail?
Still going to continue to work.
Why?
Because you have Wi-Fi. Your Wi-Fi, as long as you have power and you're, no breakdown on your router, you're still going to have that communication.
Yes. So what happens is that the signal from the HYDROS to the outlet that is controlling the skimmer does not go to the cloud. So you're not going from the HYDROS to the cloud and then from the cloud back to the outlet to turn it off. Mm-hmm. The signal is going from the HYDROS to your router, from the router to the Wi-Fi strip. It doesn't even make it out to the house. So if your internet is out, then obviously it's going to continue to work. It's not going to have any problems. Now, what happens if you lose your power?
Well, that's another topic.
That's another.
We start talking battery backup.
That's another topic. Right? If you lose your power, then you lose everything. You know, I mean, that's yes. So let's go ahead and show. I mean, yeah, please, April, show picture 13. So right there, so you can see right there. The signal goes to the router, to the access point, and then to either to the HYDROS or to the Wi-Fi strip. It doesn't go up the cloud and then back down. It doesn't do that. Okay, so that's the big thing. All right. Yep. So you want to go ahead and pair a Wi-Fi strip?
Yeah. Let's see how does it work.
Let's do it. You know, I'm always afraid of Wi-Fi strips, especially when we do live shows. You can see Dave. You know what? One of these days, I'm going to have Dave's heartbeat monitor on the back. Beep, 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 beep. Flat line. it cracks me out.
Don't do that to me.
All right, so I'm going to ask April to share my screen right now. All right, so here's a Wi-Fi strip that I have right now. Okay, you know, here's my CoralView, my handy dandy CoralView test controller here. That it's, you know, you guys know it already. It's one of the buddies here at CoralView. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and add a Wi-Fi device. So let's do this here. Oh, you know what? Let me just. I already had it installed, so let's delete it. Why not? Let me delete it, and then okay. So, all right, back to status. There's no Wi-Fi device. I have output set in here, but no Wi-Fi device. So let's go ahead and create the Wi-Fi device. So add a Wi-Fi device. Hit the plus symbol, and I'm going to call this quad. Create. All right, now it's going to ask you. The app asks you what are you going to have? Quad, single, or Wi-Fi feeder? I'm just going to say quad for purposes right now. So now it says unplug the device from your Wi-Fi. So I'm going to go ahead and do that right now. I'm going to go ahead and unplug the device. All right, it's unplugged. And you know, I had to go under the cabinet right here because it's where it is. So I'm going to go to the next one right here. This is the great things about live TV, guys, when you have to do it yourself. So continue. Now it says please plug the Wi-Fi device and press continue. Be back. All right, there you go. I have it. So now hit continue. It says press and hold. Please hold the button on your Wi-Fi device down for 5 seconds until the LED is flashing. This press continue. So if you look at my little LED right here, it's already flashing. So I don't have to do it. If it was solid, I would just press it and hold until it flashes. Now, here's a big thing, guys. You see how the LED is flashing in here? If it's flashing more than 1 blink per second, thumbs up, you're good to go. Sometimes if it's flashing less than 1 blink per second, then it's not good. It's actually in a different mode. So press and hold again until the blinking light starts to blink fast. So I'm going to press it and hold, you know, and then release. Blue, but it's blinking a lot slower. See that? That is not good. That's not what we want. I want to press and hold. And now, see how fast it's blinking? That's the difference. So it's blinking fast. I'm going to go ahead and select continue. And then it says linking in progress. There you go. So now it's going to grab, it's going to do its thing. The Wi-Fi signal is going to send the signal through the Wi-Fi, and the HYDROS is going to recognize it. You're going to hit a click, and then the blinking stops. And you see how the blinking is stopping. And now it turns solid. When it turns solid, that means the Wi-Fi strip's got a Wi-Fi connection. And then you get a nice message that says link successful. Click continue. And now what you can do is upload your changes. Look at that. So now I can go back to my status right here. And the Wi-Fi device right there. Check that out. That was it. That's it. Jesus Christ. I mean, whoa. That took less than the show. That's it. I was like, Dave, we would have done a show like that. As I've been like, hey, bye. You know, that's it. Okay, so now let's test it. Okay, so yeah, I get sometimes people on the support that says, okay, I paired my Wi-Fi strip, but nothing is working. And I'm like, okay. You have to once you pair the Wi-Fi strip, now you got to tell the control what to do with it. Right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a skimmer. So I'm going to go add an output here. I'm going to call it skimmer. Let's do protein skimmer. And now here, output ice. Look at that. Quad 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, and 4 are your regular individual outlets from left to right. Okay, and then 5 is your USB ports as a single one. So I'm going to plug it into the 1 and upload the changes. That's it. So now, if I go back to the status, and I'm gonna grab this right here, I'm gonna put it right next to the microphone so you can see. There is the skimmer is on. There's a little click right there. Skimmer turned off. Let me go ahead and turn it back on. There's a little click right there. That's it. Okay, so let me return it back to auto. Now, that's pretty much it. So you just tell it what and where to do it. That's how easy it is. Now, a couple things I want to say about the Wi-Fi strip, and I noticed this during the online, and I'm going to ask April to go back to me here. All right, I have gotten emails on support that tell me that the Wi-Fi strip is not working because I press the button and then it clicks, but then I want to turn off, so I press the button and then everything turns off, but then it turns back on immediately. So if I do this, turned off. And you see that? It went back to on. I can turn it back off. No, I want it off. But then immediately, after a few seconds afterwards, it'll turn everything back on. Why? Because this is being controlled by your HYDROS. So by me doing this, I'm changing the status, the state on each outlet. At that point, the HYDROS says, wait a minute, that's not right. So let me put everything back the way it should be.
Yep.
Why do we do this? Because technically there's only one master, it's the HYDROS.
Mm-hmm.
It's not Carlos, it's not Dave, it's the HYDROS. Now, Carlos is HYDROS master, so there's a chain of command, okay? And second of all, if you have children and they go, oh, look at the little button.
Yep.
Let's press it. And the HYDROS is gonna say, no, 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 not little Johnny. Everything has to be little, not little Jeff Bernadette or little Bob. It has to turn back on. So they turn it back on immediately. So if you want to turn something off, then you got to go to the HYDROS, the app, and then override it off or override it on to do it. If you do it here, the HYDROS is going to say, nope, you're doing it incorrectly. Let me return back to the way it was, because the HYDROS doesn't know if you're doing it on purpose or if you did it as a mistake. Okay, so that's pretty much how the HYDROS works. And then I can go back and create a custom reactor. I can create a heater. I can create fans, and then just tell them which one. I have the skimmer on 1, so now the custom reactor would be in 2. Maybe the pump would be in 3. The heater on 4. And the fans on 5. You just have to tell it what to do, because the HYDROS is not going to do something that you don't want, that you're not telling it to do.
Yep.
Yeah. So if you like the show, if you like what you're hearing, please hit that subscribe button, hit the likes, or hit that little bell, and you'll be notified right away of when we have a show. We have this show as the CoralView CVtv workshops. We have them every other week. Today we're talking about Wi-Fi. Also, if you have any questions about the product, you can always go to forum.coralviewhydros.com. We have a very extensive library of posts there. People have asked questions, and the DIY section is incredible because it's a really cool gadget. The HYDROS is a really cool gadget, and for an app that is as easy to use, it is also very robust and very versatile. And you can see that in the DIY section because there's a lot of things that you can do there. Yep. All right. So again, if you like the show, we always are here, every 2 weeks. I know we got a little too technical today, but it was kind of like we wanted to cover the Wi-Fi because there's a lot of people out there that put down the Wi-Fi, because they've had bad experience with it. But we have done many things to mitigate the bad in here, and make sure that there's a lot of redundancies. Yes, things will go wrong. We're not gonna lie, things will go wrong. But you know what? I've seen things go wrong with wired devices too. So when it's Murphy's Law, things go wrong no matter what. So we're just trying to mitigate them and make them.
Like I said, Carlos, we come in with a hardwired version for our outlets, but I still think and believe that these Wi-Fi strips are incredibly useful. Just the way you can put them in another room, and maybe you just don't have what you consider critical devices, if that's a concern. But I still believe they will be widely used. So.
Yeah, it will. It will be widely used. you know, hospitals use wired meshes, and they do that for a reason. You know, they don't, you know, they don't have wireless all over the building with one router all the way in the basement and hoping that that wireless router will go all the way to the 20th floor. It's not going to happen. They're wireless meshes. So, you know, there's a reason why they do it that way. And homes should do the same thing. You should, if you have the opportunity, you have the option between wired mesh and wireless mesh, I recommend wired mesh. Okay, because otherwise, if you're buying a wireless mesh, and you know they're not cheap, they're $200, $300. So you're spending $200, $300 for something that is not reliable, and it could be. You could argue that it's not best practices. So you're spending all your money for something that is not reliable when you could have a wired mesh for a fraction of the price, and you know, 10, 20 times the reliability. You know, so anyway. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. We're always happy to see you. Thank you to Michael Trader, Spence. Thank you for asking questions. Richard, thank you for coming. Jay, Doug, Bob, Jeremy. Again, thank you so much for watching. On behalf of April, our producer, Jeremy, our graphic designer, my name is Carlos, host of CVtv Workshops, along with my co-host, David Dakin. And we wish you guys a great rest of your evening.
Thank you.